Welcome to Literary AF Podcast.
Hello, welcome to the podcast, or whatever.
Or whatever, you know.
That is take 3. My name is Sheldon,
I'm Danny.
and we're here today to talk to you about...
Oh.
Are we?
Are we?
I'm not sure.
Oh.
Talk about something. This is Literary AF.
Yeah.
A podcast about podcasts. For podcasts.
Every week we summarize another podcast episode from somebody else's podcast.
Yep.
Yeah.
Actually, I've fallen behind on my podcast listening.
I have too.
I haven't listened to anything recently.
No, me either. I used to listen to podcasts all day.
Yeah.
All the time, and since I started taking the bus, I have not listened to a single podcast.
Yeah, I've been on a big YouTube kick lately.
Yeah.
And watching like live streams and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And that's normally the time when I would be listening to a podcast.
Right.
But I have seen lots of streams about guys tricking scammers.
Those are good
shout out
ones,
to
though.
Kit Boga if he's listening to this.
Oh, those are so good.
Yeah, Kit Boga's really good. Okay, so what are we talking about today, Danny?
Well, you're still working on Les Mis.
Yeah.
And I have not a whole lot prepared today.
Okay, perfect.
Kind of flying by the seat of my pants. I was thinking we could have like just a chit chat, like a short episode, because your next 2 are going to be pretty long ones again.
Probably.
There's going to be like some long episodes, a short one, and then some long episodes. So I feel like it kind of fits. But this is just kind of loosey-goosey.
Yes, this is like an intermission because
Les Mis is a big book.
Les Mis is big. Next week will be Les Mis Part 2.
Yeah.
And the week after that will be Part 3, and then just kind of thoughts and summaries. And
So are we going to be doing 3 episodes of Les Mis still? Is that what's happening?
I think so, because if we try to jam the rest of the book into one episode, it's going to end up being super long again.
Yeah. So there'll be 3 moderately long episodes. So may as well keep this one kind of short and fun.
That
in between all of the misery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, so a lady came up to me the other day when I was reading Les Mis.
Oh, no.
She was British, and she was like in her 50s.
Okay.
And she was like, "Oh, I've never met anybody."
Oof.
Sorry. I had to do the voice, but I didn't want to. But that's how her voice sounded.
Okay.
And she was like it wasn't like a posh London, it was like a oi accent.
It was a Cockney accent?
Maybe. But anyway, so she was like, "I've never known anyone who read that book." She's like, "I watched a BBC series on it, and it was so crushing. I couldn't imagine why anyone would ever torture themselves by reading it." And I'm like, "It's pretty good, actually. I like it." It's very awkward. Because I wasn't even like just at the beginning. I'm like 200-ish pages from the end.
Yeah, you're almost done.
So she can see that I'm like a good chunk of the way through the book.
Yeah.
So.
And like this isn't the first time you've read it either. This is like your favorite book.
No, she didn't need to know that part though.
But yeah, there's like a BBC miniseries or something that also I have not seen because it's not musical. So.
Yeah, I did try to watch the Liam Neeson one back in the day.
Yeah.
And when it wasn't a musical, I was...
it's a lot less interesting.
Very unimpressed. Yeah. Although, to be fair, now that I've read the book, I might like a non-musical version of it.
Yeah.
Fine.
Yeah.
But back in the day, it's like, I like the music.
Yeah. Exactly. That's why I'm not super interested in that. Nobody's singing anything. There's no...
Well, the book's great, because then you can just imagine they're singing all their lines of dialogue.
Just extremely long-winded songs. Oof. Alright. So I was thinking we could have like a fun discussion about like who your favorite characters are in books that you've read in the last couple years. Like, would you consider Jean Valjean one of your favorite characters?
Yes.
Would you?
Yeah. Definitely. Or... yeah, I don't know. It's hard to say because like he is a good character and the parts of the book that focus on him, I really like him.
Right.
But there are long chunks of the book where he's not the main character.
Right.
Like the whole third book or third part of the book is focused on Marius, like 100%.
Okay.
So like Jean Valjean appears at a certain point. Of course, Hugo does this thing where he doesn't tell you it's Jean Valjean. He says, "Ooh, an older man with white hair who has a young daughter."
Yeah, you mentioned.
He does that all the time.
Yeah.
And I think he thinks it's so clever. And it's just like, I know who this is.
The big surprise is that the main character is the main character.
But then he starts throwing in stuff like, I'm sure the intrepid reader already knows that was Jean Valjean we saw back there. And it's like, just tell us. But anyway, so yeah, it's hard to say. I'll have to finish the book before I can say for sure whether I still think Jean Valjean's
You still like him as... Is he your favorite character in that book?
Maybe. It's such an ensemble book, though, where it's like...
I guess.
I couldn't imagine reading that book without the Thénardiers and Marius and Cosette. Right. Like, that one's tough to say. I will say, No, do you have one locked and loaded?
Favorite characters?
Yeah.
Not locked and loaded, but...
What about Mr. Collins?
Of course.
Actually, Darcy is a good pick.
Darcy... Yeah, Darcy's pretty decent as far as characters go. I'd say he's not like...
That, of course, is Mr. Darcy from Pride and Prejudice.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah. If you're a long-term listener, you know that we talk a lot about Pride and Prejudice. But if you're new...
If this is your first episode and you're like, I wonder if that's Pride and Prejudice they're referring to. The answer is always yes.
It's always Mr. Darcy from Pride and Prejudice, yes. Yeah. And, yeah. I wouldn't say he's my favorite Austen hero.
Oh, okay.
Everybody knows that I love Captain Wentworth.
Oh, yeah.
I also like Colonel Brandon a whole lot.
Which one's he from?
He's from Sense and Sensibility.
Oh, okay.
Did you read that one?
Yeah, I have, and then I recently watched the movie.
Which one?
The Snape.
With Alan Rickman, yeah.
The Snape version of the film.
The Snape version of Sense and Sensibility, of course. That was pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's always been like my favorite, especially because it's Alan Rickman.
Yeah.
But in just like the book sense, I think Wentworth is my favorite hero, just because I like that book the most. I guess. But
and which one's Wentworth from? I'm having a...
Oh, that's from Persuasion.
Okay, I'm like mildly sick today.
Yeah.
And it's making my brain operate
a little slow.
Yeah.
I think we're all missing the big favorite is clearly Edward from Twilight here.
Oh.
We completely missed that one.
Well, I was going to say Bella. She's such a fleshed out and detailed character.
She gets better.
Yeah.
As the story goes on, but yeah.
Well, and I'll always defend, like, in the first book, that she is meant to be a cipher for the reader.
Yeah, absolutely.
But, like, there's still those passages that are so funny of, like, I booted up my favorite web browser,
God,
and it's like...
Yeah.
You couldn't even give her that little ounce of personality where she chooses Google Chrome.
Her favorite web browser, and then she has to wait for her homepage to load. And
her nondescript homepage.
Oh, her nondescript
so that
homepage.
she can navigate over to her free email service.
Yeah. Oh, that's something.
Yeah. I like one book that I want to reread soon, and then we'll cover on the podcast.
Yeah.
Is Tale of Two Cities by Dickens.
Okay, yeah.
And Sidney Carton from that book is definitely one of my favorite characters of all time.
I thought you were gonna say Sidney Poitier, and I'm like, no, that's an actor, isn't it?
The actor, he is one of my favorite actors of all time.
Okay.
But Sidney Carton is really a fun character.
Okay.
He's like the slacker, like loser who's like kind of out for himself the entire book.
Yep. And
then, spoiler alert, sacrifices himself at the end of the book to save the main character.
Oof.
And it's like he's such a fun, like, because you literally don't expect it. Like, he's just like he's getting drunk all day. He's like cruising with ladies, and then at the end when it happens, you're like, Sydney, no. I gotta reread it because it's been a long time, but I remember in the moment that being a very like powerful section.
Right. That's one of my least favorite plot devices.
Really?
Yeah. The favored best friend / older mentor / cool guy that everybody loves sacrificing themselves for the hero.
Oh, well, I'll say, first off, that I don't think it was a cliche back when Dickens did it.
Right.
And I'll say, secondly, that he's not the best friend or the favored guy.
Okay.
He's like people hate him. He's like a loser.
Okay.
And so it's like, when he does it, it's very, like, kind of unexpected in the context.
Okay. That's better.
Like, he's kind of just like this jerk who hangs around for a while. And I think he likes the main girl, maybe.
Okay.
But, like, he's very, I don't know, I have to reread it, but it's very good.
Yeah, that's... I just don't like books that get all, like, melancholy.
Yeah, and that's my favorite thing.
Yeah.
If people ain't dying, then I ain't crying.
Yeah.
I could have made a better rhyme. I'm gonna workshop that one.
That's kind of accurate, though, but... especially, my absolute least favorite is the hero has to do the sacrifice to save everybody else. That is my least favorite plot device.
I like if it's set up good. Yeah, it has to be set up right, I think.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of Okay. Some spoilers here for some YA novels that are quite old by now, I believe, so if you haven't read them... I mean, even if I say the name now at this point, it's a spoiler, but... So, there's a series called Mistborn.
Okay.
By Brandon Sanderson. And I read the first half of the first... I'd say I read, like, the first 60% of the first book.
Okay.
And I have a problem where if I don't know how it's going to end, I get really anxious about it, I guess.
Oh, that's the best feeling.
And I end up looking up spoilers for whatever I'm reading / watching or whatever on the internet before it's over. So I found out how Mistborn ended. Like, it's a trilogy.
Yeah.
And I found out how the series ended, like, partway through the first book. And then I put the book down and I haven't touched it since.
Yeah, that's actually, if I don't have at least a vague sense of I don't know what's going to happen,
yeah,
then I'm like, I don't feel like reading this.
Yeah.
I need some kind of surprise.
No, I need to know that I'm going to like how this book ends. If I invest this much time in something and I don't like it, I'm going to be just so angry. So, knowing how Mistborn ended, I knew I wasn't going to like it, so I just put it down and I saved myself another, like, 600 pages.
Well, I don't like anything, so it's just passing the time no matter what I'm doing.
Right.
That's right, we got melancholy Sheldon here today.
We're in for a treat.
Yeah. What's some other...
Well, I have some romance heroes that I'm pretty sure I've already talked about. I know I've talked about at least some of them before. In recent memory, one of my favorite heroes is Lothair.
Who's Lothair?
He's from the book Lothair.
As soon as you said romance heroes, I'm like, she's going to bring up Lothair.
I know.
And I'm going to pretend I don't know who it is. That's
Anybody who knows me knows that he's my favorite.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's just ridiculous. He's so absurd that it's funny. Mm-hmm. And I think that's why I enjoy it so much. Like, just throwing temper tantrums and biting people.
Yeah.
Because he's mad is really funny, I guess. And that's why he works, I guess, for me. He's dumb. So. There's a series of books called Natural History of Dragons.
Okay, I think I've
talked about these books with you. I don't know if I've talked about them on the podcast or not.
No, I don't know.
I originally picked up the books because they have, like, these really nice covers on them.
They do have really cool covers. It's very, like... I remember seeing it and thinking, oh, I should get into those.
Yeah, they're, like, scientific diagrams of dragons on the covers and things. Mm-hmm. And they're really cool. And they're written in the style of, like a memoir, I guess.
Okay.
She's writing her memoirs or something. And I've only read the first book. And, she's a really good heroine.
Okay.
I really liked her. I can't remember her name now. Lady Trent.
Okay.
Yeah, Isabella, Lady Trent, is, she gets into, like, studying dragons, and they go on these adventures to foreign lands to capture dragons and learn more about them, and
mm-hmm.
It's very, I guess it's very fantastical.
Okay.
Which is, I went into it because somebody had recommended it as a romance series.
Yeah.
but it's not.
Oh, okay.
It's definitely more of like a fantasy, which is cool. I liked it anyway.
Yeah.
There's some parts that I did not like because they wouldn't happen in a romance book, but you know.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah. So, History of Dragons, by, I believe her name is Marie Brennan, is good and worth checking out. I gotta read more of that. I will eventually, when I can actually read something.
Yeah. I like the main guy, I think... Actually, I'm kind of torn, but I wanted to bring up Quoth or Quoth or whatever
from In the Name of the Wind. Yeah. By Patrick Rothfuss. Did that book ever get like its third one?
Rival. There is a third one, but it's not like a part of the trilogy. It's like a spin-off book, I think.
Oh, okay.
Which I haven't read, and I don't know if I will. I just want the next part of the series.
But yeah, the next one in the series has not come out yet.
No, I don't think so.
Is it coming out still, or is that just kind of...
I think so. I think Rothfuss just takes a long time to write.
I've heard of that before.
I've read he wrote a blog about like what he does for editing.
Yeah. And
it's a very long and detailed process where like he'll write like this 1,000-page book and then he'll go through it page by page and like, oh, I don't know, I feel like tackling this page today, or like I send it over to beta readers and get their opinion and then I change some stuff. And it's like, that sounds like he'll spend 12 hours in a day and he'll be like, I edited 3 pages today. Good work.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah, so it takes him a while.
He's working on it at least.
But his main character is kind of fun, and well, I don't know if I really like the main character. I think I just like the voice of the narration in it.
That's always important.
And I also the book it's got a fairly interesting fantasy world, and it has its own magic system, which is a lot of fun. And so I like all those elements, and like the narrator is Quoth or Quoth.
I think it's Quoth.
It's spelled Quoth, but I think it's pronounced Quoth.
Quoth? Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. I haven't read the books. I've just seen people talking about them.
So. Yeah. I think there's a big section at the very beginning of the book where he explains his name.
Okay.
Which, all right. But yeah, so it's hard because it's like he's the narrator, but he's narrating like his younger self's actions.
Right.
And I feel like the younger self is a bit of a D-bag.
Right.
But the older voice is kind of good.
Okay. That's usually how it goes, I guess.
Yeah, so it's kind of... I'm torn on him as a character, but he was distinct enough to like really stand out in my mind.
Right. I have not heard much about those books aside from there's lots of like banging.
There is one section in one book.
Really? That's it?
That's it. But
that's what everybody talks about.
Yeah, because it's like so long. So it's like, okay. So here's our brief review of
In the Name of the Wind?
No, it's not in Name of the Wind. It's in the second one. It's in Wise Man's Fear.
Okay.
So, Name of the Wind.
Okay.
He's a kid. He goes to a wizard's... Or first he's
wizard
like homeless. School? Yeah, then he goes to wizard school.
Okay.
Then he meets this girl that he like kind of falls in love with. They can't be together or something, and there's somebody at his school who hates him, and it's kind of like Harry Potter-ish, but like more of a fantasy world.
Okay.
And then that's like the whole first book.
Okay.
Second book is he leaves wizard school, and he's also like a musician. He's like a bard. Okay. So he goes like on the road, and he goes to this foreign kingdom to like get a patronage or something there, and he's playing his lute, and then somehow he ends up traveling somewhere on behest of the king or whatever. And then while he's traveling, he runs into this like fairy woman who's like drowning men in the river.
Oh, okay.
But then he like chases after her, and in that book, if you know something's true name, you can control it.
Right.
So like the Name of the Wind is about him learning to summon the wind.
Right.
Which is actually, it's really cool. I love it.
That's a common thing in, I think, some folklore.
Yeah, and like a lot of like, if you know the real name of a demon, you
can call him and
you
control
can summon
it
it and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, so in the second book, he meets this random fairy lady, and this happens about like a third of the way through the book, I think. And then he knows her name somehow.
Okay.
And is able to like summon her, and then she like can't kill him because she respects him as an equal.
Right.
And then they just end up banging in the fairy world for like 100 pages.
Oh, wow.
And it's like, so off base. It's so like unlike anything from before. But it's like it's him learning the ways of sex, I think. Like it's basically like she's training him to be a good sex haver.
Okay.
And then he like fixes something or just wrecks something in the fairy world. I can't remember. But somehow he leaves the fairy world and then she's like, all right, back to my adventures.
Okay. All right.
And it's kind of funny when you think of the context. Because it's like, I feel like it's an old man telling somebody else's story.
Right.
So can you imagine an old man just randomly stops in the middle of a story to describe how he banged a fairy in the fairy world for like 100 pages?
For 100 pages? That's excessive.
Yeah, it's
That's the only thing I knew about with these books was that apparently there was a lot of sex in them. But apparently it was just one sex.
It's very concentrated into one section of the book. And then I think later in that same book he has sex again with somebody who's impressed because he knows all these fairy techniques. The book sounds stupid, but it's really good.
I mean, a lot of people talk about these books, and they seem to be like pretty highly regarded. So
the first one's really, really good.
Yeah.
The second one it's also good, but it feels like it doesn't go anywhere.
Right.
Because it's like at the end of the book, he basically ends up where he started.
Right.
But he just had these little side adventures with like the fairy, and he goes to some weird kingdom where he dodges these knife leaves or something. There's like a tree with like super sharp leaves.
Yeah.
And if you can dodge all the leaves, then the people of the village will respect him or something. I can't remember.
I feel like that's a problem with like trilogies, I guess, or it's book series in general.
Yeah.
Where the first book is really good, it pulls you in, and then the second book just kind of it can't resolve the major story points because there's supposed to be another book.
Yeah.
But if there's no next book to follow it up, it's just kind of flopping around.
Yeah, that's kind of one thing that I want to say that J.K. Rowling is really smart for doing is by making every book of hers a year in his life at school.
Yeah.
It's like she can never quite fall into that trap because it's always making like progress, at least in age-wise.
Yeah. I think that's why such long series work with like romance books and stuff like that.
Okay.
Each book in the series follows a different set of main characters.
Yeah.
And they get their story resolved within that book, and then there's overarching plots that carry on through all of the books.
Yeah.
So it's a lot easier to have a 16-book series and it not like bogged down in the middle when you get 16 full stories instead of like Game of Thrones, which kind of floundered around for 4 books.
Yeah. It feels like it's petered out completely.
Yeah.
Come on. R.R. Martin, release those last books so I can actually read the series.
You're waiting for them all to be done before you start?
Yeah.
Ooh.
Because you know how you're like, I don't want to read something if I don't know how it ends?
Yeah.
I don't want to read something if I don't think an ending is coming.
If you're never going to get that ending.
Yeah.
That's very fair.
That's actually why I stopped reading comic books entirely.
Oh, yeah.
It's because I realized that these characters I loved were never going to get a proper ending.
Yeah. That's kind of why I stopped with a lot of shonen anime.
Okay. Yeah.
Is because those just keep going and going and going and going and going. I watched Naruto when I was in like middle school.
Yeah, I watched it when I was younger too.
And that just finished like 2, 3, 4 years ago or something like that.
Yeah, it went for a very long time, and now it's like his daughter.
It's his son.
Is it a son?
Yeah, it's Boruto.
Oh, I thought
his son.
I thought it was a daughter.
No, it's his son.
Oh.
It like started. There was no delay between the end of Naruto and the start of Boruto. Like,
really?
it went right one into the other. Yeah. So that's why I don't do shonen anime anymore. It's just way too much, and it also repeats itself a whole lot.
Yeah.
It
is a son. I thought it was a daughter the whole time.
No.
I had to Google it because I didn't believe
He's got like daughters and stuff, but the main titular character is his son.
Yeah, well, the name Boruto is such a not real name.
Yeah.
That I'm like, that could be a girl's name, maybe.
I wish they had been a little more creative with that one. Yeah. Boy. Boruto.
Because I just imagined it was like, because he hooks up with Hinata, right?
Yeah, they hook up at the end of the series, finally. That only took like 12 years.
Yeah. Which makes it kind of creepy because she was obsessed with him the whole time.
Yeah, she was.
Ugh.
Oh, man.
So this is our episode where we talk about Les Mis briefly.
This is our Naruto episode.
Naruto, Les Mis, Name of the Wind, and briefly we mentioned our favorite characters.
Okay, but like I just want to throw out there, Sakura and Sasuke hook up at the end of Naruto, and then he immediately leaves forever, basically. She has, like, 2 kids with him, and then he just, like, takes off. And I don't know what happens after that. I didn't keep up with any of that stuff, but that's all I know is that Sasuke and Sakura, like, hook up, and then he just leaves.
I think I saw up to, when Jiraiya dies.
Oh, major spoilers for Naruto, by the way, if you're watching that.
But that's, like, 8 years in. Like...
that's about when I stopped. No. I probably stopped watching a little bit before that.
Yeah.
But I know I got, like, a fair chunk of the way into Shippuden before I stopped.
Yeah, actually, I don't even know if I got that far. I do know that it happened, though.
Yeah, that was, like, the final nail in the coffin, where I was like, okay, I'm done now. Because I like Jiraiya.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't want to invest in a character that I'm gonna just...
It's just... Die. I don't actually understand how people watch those kinds of anime, like, how people have the time for them.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, if you're young, like, when you're a teen, it seems like you have limitless time.
Yeah, but time just is not what it used to be.
When you're an adult, and it's like, I could never invest, you know,
you gotta multitask or you can't do anything anymore.
Even well, this is kind of a sidetrack, but our friend Kane has been playing the same video game for like 3 years. And like, it's a fairly long game, but it's just because he doesn't have time, so when he sits down...
Is that Final Fantasy 15?
Yeah, he's still playing Final Fantasy 15.
Oh, that's a long one, though.
Yeah, but it's still... That's why it's terrible being an adult. What else do we have to say before we close this one off?
I think we touched on all the major plot points here. I think we got Mr. Darcy in there. We got...
Oh, I thought of one I wanted to mention.
Oh, yes?
Wasn't Mr. Collins. Oh, Mr. Rochester from... Jane Eyre?
Jane Eyre.
Yeah, Jane Eyre. He's so funny. And
yeah, I've been meaning to read that eventually.
I like how
watch it.
He pretends to be an old woman. That part was great. Like how he married a woman that locked her in his house and didn't tell anybody. That was great.
Did you have you seen there's a book on, I think it's on Book Outlet, so it's like $2 or whatever. Mm-hmm. But it's Jane Eyre, but from Mr. Rochester's point of view.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I'll have to find the name of it and send it to you, but I've seen it like advertised on the website a couple times.
I wonder if I'd like it.
I don't know. I mean, remember what happened with the Pride and Prejudice from Mr. Darcy's point of view?
No.
Did you read that?
I read the murder mystery version.
Oh, and I read the Mr. Darcy. Yeah, that was...
Did we ever talk about that on here?
We did. It was the first book I've ever did not finish. Just gave up on after like 60 pages. Remember?
That's right. And I read like the first 10
books,
pages and I was like, yeah, forget this.
Yeah, it was like 3 books long. And that's like the first book I put on my official did not finish list on Goodreads. So, but this is just one Mr. Rochester book, so maybe it's better.
Yeah, but I don't know. Part of what makes him a good character is that he's like kind of an enigma.
Right.
Like he's just like he's her boss for a while, and then it's like, oh, maybe he likes me, but he's old. And then it's like, surprise, he's the old woman.
Yeah. I'll probably watch that movie. There's like a movie for that just came out a couple years ago, didn't it?
I think it might have, yeah.
Yeah, maybe I'll watch that. I think it might be on Netflix.
Could be. All right, we're...
Anyways.
Yeah, this is a normal size episode.
Yeah.
Of rambling, but still.
Yeah, it's just a fun chit-chat. Just some friends hanging out. You're a friend.
Yeah, welcome, listener.
You're a friend.
To our friend group. Welcome to my basement.
You've
Have a seat on my broken couch.
Hanging out. Having a talk.
All right, so where can people find us?
People can find us on Facebook, YouTube, Spotify, Podbean, iTunes, Literary AF. You can send us an email at literaryafpod@gmail.com. And we're on Twitter, LiteraryAFPod at Twitter.
Yeah. You can also... I always try to make up another place where people can find us. And I realize that joke's probably getting old.
It's usually some variation of on the street.
Yeah. It's just like a weird habit where it's like as soon as you say that, I feel like I have to add one.
Yeah.
But there are no like real ones for me to add.
You want me to leave some off so you can add some real ones on at the end instead?
Yeah, maybe if you forget Facebook every time, I can just be like, and Facebook.
I'm really good at that, so no problems there.
But you can also feel free to email me. My email is Sheldon at email.com.
At email.com. You're the first.
I was very lucky to get that email. No, that's not my real email. Do not trust any emails from Sheldon at email.com. He's one of my rivals. But tune in next week when we talk about Les Mis again.
Les Mis Part 2.
Part 2.
No, 3.
Part 2.
No, Part 2.
Part 2.
Yeah.
And thank you for listening, and have yourselves a happy Chinese New Year, which I think is coming up.
I think so. The Overwatch Chinese New Year event just started. That's usually my indication that something is happening.
Yeah, so welcome to Year of the Rat, and we'll catch you next time.
Yeah, bye.